The triumph of the paper mill's first production run was still fresh in Ezekiel's mind, a gratifying data point in his grand Viridian optimization project. Yet, even as the crisp, bleached sheets piled high, his internal systems flagged a critical bottleneck: metal supply chain deficiency. Paper was a medium, but iron was the very skeleton of an industrial society, and the foundations of the mighty city walls he envisioned. He had observed Lord Riel's guards, sturdy, loyal, but equipped with swords that often showed the nicks of frequent sharpening, and armor that bore the patches of countless men's. Master Borin, the village smith, was skilled, but limited by the meager input materials available. To scale up security protocols, as he'd told Papa, they needed an iron mine. A proper metal hole. Ezekiel stretched, his small muscles protesting slightly. Meat suit calibration, day 4. Muscular integration, improved but still lagging optimal performance. Sustained high-intensity unsubmical detection will be energy expensive. Recommend localized scanning protocol over wide area reconnaissance. His child's body, for all its innate magical potential, was still a fragile vessel, its physical hardware struggling to keep pace with his ancient, demanding software. Direct, unfiltered, unsubmical detection over vast distances was like running a supercomputer on a medieval water wheel, slow, inefficient, and prone to overheating his own internal processes. He needed a guide. Someone with local geological data and historical excavation records. Master Borin. The smith would know where bits of iron had been found in the past, where the ground had a certain feel to it, or where odd, reddish rocks hinted at veins. Borin was a practical, hands-on domain expert. With two of Lord Riel's most reliable guards, stout men named Kale and Joran, assigned as his security detail, and perhaps, Ezekiel mused, as glorified babysitters for a 6-year-old, Ezekiel set off for the village smithy. The guards, stern-faced and heavily armed, kept a respectful distance, their eyes constantly scanning the path. Their presence, Ezekiel acknowledged, was a necessary redundancy protocol for high-value asset protection. The smithy was a small, grimy building near the edge of the village, its air thick with the scent of charcoal, sweat, and hot metal. The rhythmic clang of hammer on anvil vibrated through the ground. Inside, Master Borin, a burly man with arms like tree trunks and a face perpetually smudged with soot, hammered a glowing piece of iron. Sparks flew, illuminating his concentration. Master Borin! Ezekiel chirped, marching in with his characteristic lack of deferential hesitation. Borin, startled, nearly dropped his tongs. He straightened up, wiping his brow with a greasy rag. Lord Ezekiel, to what do we owe this honor? Have you need of a new sword, perhaps? Or a small, shiny hammer? He glanced at the guards, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. No, Master Borin, Ezekiel replied, shaking his head. We are initiating Phase 2 raw material resource acquisition. Specifically, iron ore procurement. He gestured vaguely towards the mountains. Papa says you know where the hard, shiny rocks are. Borin frowned. Hard, shiny rocks? You mean iron ore, young lord? I know the places where we found small chunks. Mostly near the old mountain trails, where the earth gets red and stubborn. Why do you ask? My unsubmical detection system can locate larger deposits, Ezekiel explained, trying to simplify. But my processing power is limited for a wide area scan. It's like looking for a needle in a haystack, but the haystack is very, very big, and my eyes are still small. Your knowledge is crucial for narrowing the search parameters. Borin blinked. Unsubmical detection? Young lord, are you saying you can feel the iron in the ground? Like a divining rod, but for metal. His skepticism warred with the memory of the temple's golden light and the miraculous appearance of the paper mill machinery. More precise than a divining rod, Master Borin. More like a subsurface geological scanner, Ezekiel clarified. But it helps to have geographical coordinates from a local domain expert. You know the best data points for past resource extraction. Borin scratched his head, then looked at the two stern guards. Lord Riel wouldn't send them just for a child's fancy. There was something truly profound here. So, you wish to go to the mountains, then? And I am to point out the rocky bits. Precisely. Ezekiel confirmed. Your historical data on previous iron yields will guide my detection algorithms. We will find a large metal hole. Borin, a pragmatic man, eventually nodded. Aye, well. If Lord Riel commands it. And if the metal hole means more iron for my forge, then I'll follow. Though I've never seen a geological scanner quite like yourself, young lord. He grabbed his hammer and a pickaxe, securing them to his belt. Lead the way, then, Lord Ezekiel. And try not to stumble too much on the rocks. The mountains are rough, even for grown legs. Ezekiel beamed, then stumbled slightly on the smithy's uneven floor, catching himself on the doorframe. Physical dexterity, fall detection subroutine needs fine-tuning. The journey to the foothills of the jagged mountains was arduous. Lord Riel's guards, Kale and Joran, walked with the disciplined precision of seasoned warriors, their eyes constantly sweeping the tree line. Borin, grumbling good-naturedly, kept pace, his heavy boots crunching on the dusty trail. And Ezekiel, dressed in sturdy, simple clothes, trotted along in the middle, his golden eyes wide, absorbing every detail of the passing landscape. The initial phase of the resource mapping expedition was, from Ezekiel's internal perspective, a frustrating exercise in physical constraint. His innate unsubmical detection system was indeed active, a constant, low thrumming in his consciousness that mapped the mineral composition of the earth beneath them. He could feel the subtle variations, the pockets of limestone, the streaks of granite, the faint, diffused presence of various metals. Problem: high ambient noise. Non-specific unsubmical signatures creating detection interference. Current processing unit, meat suit, cannot filter broad-spectrum input efficiently. It was like trying to find a specific frequency on a radio, but the entire world was broadcasting static. His senses, designed for cosmic-scale data, were overwhelmed by the sheer, unfiltered information of the planet's crust. He could tell something was metallic, but pinpointing a concentrated iron ore deposit was proving difficult. His small body vibrated faintly with the effort, making him feel vaguely nauseous. Lord Ezekiel, are you well? Joran asked, noticing the slight tremor in the boy's frame as they ascended a particularly rocky incline. My internal temperature regulators are fluctuating slightly, Ezekiel mumbled, wiping a bead of sweat from his brow. He tripped over a loose stone, landing with a soft thump. Kale quickly moved to steady him. Careful there, little lord, Kale said, his voice gruff but kind, helping Ezekiel to his feet. These mountain paths are unforgiving. Ezekiel huffed, embarrassed. Physical balance protocols remain unstable. Requires more cerebellar calibration. He mentally cursed his body for its low mobility stats. He was supposed to be a cosmic architect, not a clumsy toddler. Master Borin, Ezekiel eventually piped up, realizing the inefficiency of his current blind search method. Where are the historically productive geological formations? The places where you found the shiny bits before? Borin grinned. Ah, now that's a question I can answer, young lord. Not too far from here, there's a ravine we call the Red Scar. The earth there is stained a deep rust, and sometimes, after a heavy rain, small chunks of heavy, dark rock wash down. We've always taken what we could from there. He pointed towards a narrow, overgrown cleft in the distant mountainside. It's a hard climb, though. The Red Scar, Ezekiel repeated, his golden eyes now fixed on the direction Borin indicated. Analysis: red earth indicates high iron oxide concentration. Heavy, dark rock confirms density of metallic ore. Ravine suggests natural erosion, potentially exposing deeper veins. New search parameters received. Excellent. He focused his unsubmical detection narrowly, directing it precisely towards the Red Scar. With the reduced search radius, his mind could finally filter the noise. The diffuse hum sharpened into a distinct, powerful thrumming. He felt it, a massive, pulsating concentration of iron deep within the earth, far beyond the surface deposits Borin knew. There! Ezekiel exclaimed, pointing with a small, determined finger, almost stumbling again in his excitement. He then looked at Borin and the guards. A very large metal hole. Not just little bits, but a big one. Like a whole mountain made of useful building blocks. Borin and the guards followed his gaze, seeing only a rugged, distant mountainside. Borin squinted. That's a steep climb, Lord Ezekiel. And the red scar itself is more of a trickle than a river, barely a place to get a good pickaxe in. Master Borin, Ezekiel continued, his tone earnest and direct, do you know how to make a really big hole in a mountain? Not just pickaxe and shovel. Have you ever tried to dig deep for the shiny rock? To make a path, like a tunnel, right into the mountain itself. Borin scratched his beard, his brow furrowed in thought. A big hole, Lord Ezekiel? Like a mine? No, young lord. We've never had need of such. The little bits we find on the surface, or the small veins we uncover with a few swings of a pickaxe, have always been enough. Digging deep into a mountain, that takes more than just strong arms. That takes time, and knowledge of how the rock moves, and how to keep the earth from falling in on itself. That's for tales of dwarfs, not for honest smiths. He shook his head. No, we've never dug a deep metal hole like that. But the detection signal is strong, Master Borin. Ezekiel insisted, trying to convey the undeniable truth his senses perceived. A massive ore deposit. Optimal for long-term resource extraction. He bounced on the balls of his feet, eager to proceed, despite the physical challenges that awaited him. The future of Ethelgard's defenses, and his grand, optimized society, lay buried beneath that mountain. He then paused, a new thought occurring to him, directly related to resource acquisition and economic stability. He pulled a small, shining copper coin from his pouch, the one he had copied endlessly just yesterday, and presented it to Borin. Master Borin, Ezekiel asked, his golden eyes wide with an almost innocent curiosity, do you also know where we find the really shiny yellow rock? The one that's even more soft and yellow than copper? Like the sun's color? Borin squinted at the coin, then chuckled. Ah, you mean gold, young lord. No, we don't find gold here. That's a metal from far-off lands, mostly bought from the merchants who travel from the great cities to the south. It's too soft for tools, and too rare for trade amongst common folk, used only for kings' crowns and temple ornaments. We see it but rarely, and never dig for it here. Ezekiel nodded. Gold, high value, low utility currency. Scarcity-driven economic model. He filed that information away. He had a literal infinite supply of copper, thanks to his replication ability, Site 730, 731, but gold remained a theoretical asset for now. And this coin, Master Borin, Ezekiel continued, holding up the copper piece. Where do we get the stuff to make this? The red rock? And who makes them into these round shapes? Borin picked up the coin, examining it. Copper, young lord. We get small bits of it here and there, from shallow diggings near the river, and sometimes from traders. It's useful for pots and small tools, not as strong as iron. As for who makes the coins, that's the lord's own mint, young lord. Down in the manor. A small forge, not as grand as mine, and a few careful workers. They take the metal, melt it down, and stamp it with Lord Riel's mark. It's a closely guarded secret, the making of the county's money, to keep it honest and true. He looked from the coin to Ezekiel, who had, just yesterday, conjured a literal pile of them. A flicker of bewildered awe, mixed with a healthy dose of fear, passed through the smith's eyes. Ezekiel merely nodded, as if processing complex financial algorithms. Copper, local resource. Low-grade quantity. Production centralized by county administration. Site_start, monopoly on currency generation. He had already demonstrated his ability to replicate currency, Site 730, 731, rendering the monopoly somewhat moot. But it was good to know the current economic infrastructure. Excellent, Master Borin. Ezekiel declared, his mission parameters for the day expanding exponentially. Then we have much to optimize. He then held up the copper coin to Borin again, his golden eyes gleaming with a newfound purpose. Master Borin, can you show me where we find this red rock? The copper? Where are these small diggings by the river? Borin, used to the boy's abrupt shifts, sighed good-naturedly. Young lord. It's not far. A short walk along the Ethel's eastern bank, beyond the old fishing huts. But for what purpose, Lord Ezekiel? It's just small bits of copper. Ezekiel merely smiled enigmatically. For geological correlation analysis, he said to Borin, then added to himself in a whisper too low for anyone to hear, where there is copper, there is often gold. A secondary objective, but a highly profitable one if the resource distribution patterns hold true to Earth's geological models. Lead the way, Master Borin, he announced, turning towards the river. The two guards, Kale and Joran, exchanged weary glances but followed, accustomed to the bewildering logic of their young, magically endowed prince. The walk to the copper diggings was, as Borin had said, not long. It was about an hour's brisk pace, made significantly swifter when Kale, with a gruff but gentle smile, scooped Ezekiel onto his broad shoulders. From this elevated vantage point, Ezekiel could clearly observe the terrain, mentally cross-referencing Borin's descriptions with his own unsubmical detection. The site was indeed a series of shallow, reddish-brown pits along the riverbank, where the earth was stained a faint green in places. Small, dull reddish rocks, streaked with oxidized copper, lay scattered about. Ezekiel had Kale set him down, and he picked up a few samples, turning them in his small hands. Copper concentrations confirmed. Geological indicators, sedimentary, low-grade. Hypothesis, primary copper deposits may be deeper, or correlate with igneous activity upstream. Gold correlation, low probability in immediate vicinity based on unsubmical frequency. Further geological mapping required. It wasn't the motherlode of gold he'd hoped for, but the copper was certainly present. He nodded, satisfied. This resource mapping was indeed proving effective. With the day's data collection complete, they made their way back. The journey to Borin's smithy was quicker, though still filled with Borin's rambling tales of past copper finds and near-mythical gold veins. Upon reaching the village, Ezekiel made a detour to the smithy, gathering Kale, Joran, and Borin inside. For your excellent logistical support and expert guidance, Ezekiel announced, reaching into his pouch and producing 3 gleaming copper coins. He handed one to Kale, one to Joran. Your daily compensation for services rendered. The guards, accustomed to their wages being handled by the manor's steward, accepted the coins with surprise. Thank you, young lord, Joran rumbled, examining the perfectly minted piece. Ezekiel then handed a coin to Borin. And for you, Master Borin, for your invaluable domain expertise. Borin, his eyes wide, took the coin. You honor me, young lord. Then, with a subtle movement, Ezekiel's small hand slipped another 2 copper coins into Borin's calloused palm, his golden eyes meeting Borin's with a knowing glint. It was done so discreetly that Kale and Joran, standing a few feet away, didn't notice. Internal monologue, human resource management strategy, supplemental compensation for key personnel. Motivates compliance and information sharing. Sometimes, you have to bribe someone to keep them honest. Or at least, to keep them reliably honest. It's a social engineering exploit I picked up from Earth's legacy systems. Highly effective. Borin's eyes widened further, a flicker of understanding passing between him and the child. He quickly palmed the extra coins, a faint, almost imperceptible nod of acknowledgement. Always honest, young lord, he muttered, a hint of genuine awe and newfound loyalty in his voice. From the smithy, Ezekiel then made a quick detour to the paper mill. The workers were still busy, the hum of the debarker and the creak of the presses filling the air. It felt like a proper, if nascent, industrial facility. He approached the drying racks, where sheets of fresh, bleached paper lay drying. He carefully selected a handful of sheets, a sample for his report. Paper production output, currently low volume. Perhaps 10 to 20 reams per day at current efficiency metrics. Considerably less than Earth's industrial era initial output, which could barely make 100 reams. But our resource input is massive, and labor costs are nominal thanks to Papa's generosity and my replication abilities. We have nearly 1,000 human resources currently on the payroll for various projects across the county, many now allocated to the mill. Once roller presses and steam-powered drying systems are implemented, output scalability will increase exponentially. Patience, Ezekiel. Industrialization starts somewhere. Back at the manor, the day was drawing to a close. Lord Riel was still in his study, awaiting Ezekiel's report. The child entered, carrying the handful of pristine paper sheets. "Papa," Ezekiel announced, setting the paper carefully on the desk. "Initial resource mapping expedition complete. Positive ore deposit identification at the red scar coordinates. Significant iron yield detected. Also, potential secondary resource nodes for valuable precious metals." Lord Riel's eyes lit up. "Gold? Silver, my son? Are you certain?" "My unsubmical detection system indicates strong presence probability," Ezekiel confirmed, choosing his words carefully, attributing his powers to a more palatable source. "The goddess Xylos has indeed blessed me with the ability to see deep into the Earth's compositional structure, allowing for optimal resource location." He offered a faint, internal praise ping to Xylos, just in case she was listening. Attribution, Xylos. Happy goddess, happy life. A faint smile of satisfaction bloomed on Xylos's perfect lips in her ethereal realm, a subtle surge of invigorated power flowing into her. "Yes. He acknowledges me. My chosen soul understands. And he has found treasures." Her cravings, for a moment, subsided into a sweet contentment. Lord Riel beamed. "Magnificent, Ezekiel. This is truly a blessing. But, a road to the mountains. You spoke of it." "Yes, Papa," Ezekiel said, his face clouding slightly. "Building transportation infrastructure will be labor-intensive. The mountain terrain is unoptimized for heavy cargo transit. Also, writing it all down in this dim light is suboptimal for visual clarity." He gestured vaguely at the fading light. "My soul container cannot generate sufficient artificial illumination without significant energy drain at current meat suit calibration." He mentally cursed the sun for its predictable shutdown protocol. The next morning, Ezekiel sidled up to Kale, one of his usual bodyguards, during breakfast. "Kale," he began, holding up a small, fine feather he'd found. "I need your fabrication skills." Kale, a burly man who usually fashioned battle axes and shield straps, looked at the delicate feather with confusion. "A feather, little lord? What for?" "A writing implement," Ezekiel explained. "A quill. Make it sharp, with a good tip, for holding liquid information transfer medium." He then gestured to a piece of charcoal. "And I need this." He crumbled it into a fine powder. Kale, used to the young lord's bewildering requests, simply grunted and went to work. He carefully sharpened the quill, fashioning a fine point. Then, under Ezekiel's precise instructions, and subtle, invisible nudges of unsubmicals to make the tools work just right, he ground the charcoal even finer. Ezekiel then had him mix it with water and a sticky, plant-based resin he called tree gum, a crude Arabic gum substitute Ezekiel had conjured and demonstrated. The guards watched, utterly baffled, as the black liquid slowly congealed into a thick, dark ink. "There, Lord Ezekiel," Kale said, presenting the quill and the ceramic bowl of ink. "A pen. And black liquid. What in Adlor's name is it for?" Ezekiel dipped the quill into the ink. "From here on henceforth, Kale, you shall continue to manufacture this liquid information transfer medium for me. It's called ink." He then unfurled one of the white paper samples from the mill. He dipped the quill into the ink and began to write. The ink flowed smoothly, adhering perfectly to the paper, dark and permanent against the bright white. He wrote his name, then a few complex symbols from his standardized alphabet. The guards watched, amazed, as the ink dried quickly, leaving crisp, clear marks. Content, Ezekiel then spread out the paper on a large table. He began sketching, his hand moving with a precision that belied his age. It was a map, detailed and intricate, outlining the rugged terrain leading to the Red Scar. "This is the access route to the primary resource node," he explained, pointing to lines he drew. "We need to clear this path. It will be 2 roads, eventually. One, for going down, where the loaded carts will travel. It will have gentle slopes, and even small speed reduction curves, little uphill bits, to prevent loss of control and cargo destabilization. He drew another path beside it. The other road will be multidirectional. One side will be for people, with easy steps, like stairs. The other side will be for pulling the empty carts back up. For that, we'll build a pulley system here. He drew circles at various points, with big wooden wheels, turned by people. Or, he paused, drawing intricate interlocking gears, with metallic gears and foot pedals, like the debarker. That would make it much easier to pull the carts back up. Less labor expenditure, more efficiency. He looked up at the guards, who stared at the map as if it were a coded spell. We'll need many carpenters, Kale, to make sturdy wheels and frames. And blacksmiths too, to make the metal parts, Master Borin, and anyone he can bring, even those who don't know much yet. They can learn. This will be a big project, but it will open up the mountain. Internal note: labor force resource allocation is a significant constraint. Paper mill human resources are currently underutilized in terms of skill application. Once the paper production is a stable baseline operation, reallocate a portion of those personnel to the mining operation. Update skill trees accordingly. Need to update mining tools as well, for efficiency and safety. He picked up a few of the freshly drawn maps and, with a silent, golden flash, replicated them. Duplicate. Triplicate. He now had 3 identical copies. One for Papa, one for him, and one spare. No need for messy scribes and manual copying errors. This was the optimal documentation strategy. The cable car contingency plan. As Ezekiel finished his elaborate explanation of the mountain road and pulley system, a nagging thought, like a persistent pop-up error, began to intrude on his mental satisfaction. Risk assessment, high. Potential failure mode, human resource inadequacy. Current labor skill base is low. Training latency will impact project timelines. He looked at Kale and Joran, sturdy men, but clearly bewildered by the intricacies of metallic gears and speed reduction curves. He thought of the 100 workers at the paper mill, mostly unskilled laborious, their learning curve steep. And the sheer scale of moving a mountain of iron ore. The roads, the pulleys, they required immense, sustained manual effort, precise coordination, and a level of engineering understanding currently absent. Contingency plan required. Relying solely on manual input for heavy load transport carries unacceptable failure probability. He sighed internally. He had wanted the Viridians to learn, to build their skill trees. But what if the skill tree withered before it bore fruit? What if the labor resource was strained beyond its capacity? This wasn't just about efficiency, it was about ensuring the success of the entire optimization project. He was a pragmatist, after all. Kale, Ezekiel said, interrupting his bodyguard's fascinated perusal of the two-way road sketch. What happens if we clear the road, but the workers, they cannot pull the carts fast enough? Or the mountain is too steep, and they get tired, and we cannot get the shiny rock down. Kale scratched his head. Well, little lord, we'd pull harder, I suppose. Or get more men. It's honest work, but heavy. More men means more resource allocation and slower deployment, Ezekiel muttered to himself, ignoring Kale's simple answer. He closed his eyes, his mind whirring. His initial design for the mine transport system was fundamentally flawed in its reliance on brute force in a low-tech environment. He needed an automated transport solution. Idea: aerial cable transport system. High initial energy expenditure for construction, but low operational cost and high throughput capacity. Mitigates labor skill deficit. A new vision flashed in his mind, gleaming metallic cables stretching between mountain peaks and the valley below, suspended by impossibly strong towers. On one set of cables, small cabins, carrying workers up the perilous slopes. On another, rugged iron containers, filled with ore, gliding effortlessly downwards. He could power the whole thing with a subtle, continuous application of elemental magic, a constant, low-level unsubmical flow that would make the gears turn and the cables move, making it seem like some advanced natural phenomenon. It would be a fail-safe to his earlier plan, a direct application of his power to compensate for their lack of immediate industrial capability. Kale, Joran, Ezekiel said, looking at his bodyguards with renewed intensity, And you, Master Borin, if you are listening. He pointed to the top of the highest peak in his drawing, then down to a spot near the bottom. We will build sky paths. Like great strings pulled taut between the mountain and the ground. And on these strings, little houses, like small rooms, that go up and down the mountain, carrying men and the shiny rock. Borin, who had been leaning over the map, nearly fell off his stool. Sky paths? Little houses on strings, young lord? That's madness. That's impossible. It is only computationally complex for a limited processing unit, Ezekiel stated, with a hint of exasperation. For a meat suit like mine, it's merely a resource allocation decision. He tapped his head. One pathway for personnel transport, that's for the workers. The other pathway for raw material transport, that's for the metal. He looked at their bewildered faces. This will be our backup plan, he clarified, simplifying. If the roads take too long or the pulling is too hard, then we use the sky paths. It is a contingency measure to ensure project completion despite unforeseen variables. Sometimes, you build a simpler way, and then you build a better, faster way, just in case the first way has bugs. Ezekiel monologuing internally. He tapped the map again, adding faint, parallel lines across the mountain. Yes. A cable car system. High initial energy expenditure for deployment, but minimal operational overhead once stable. The ultimate labor efficiency hack. And a perfect way to mitigate the skill set deficiency without explicitly pointing out their limitations. The guards and Borin simply stared, their mouths slightly agape. The child was not just talking about tunnels and roads, he was talking about flying houses on ropes. Their eyes held a new, deeper level of fear mixed with awe. The little Lord Ezekiel's bugs seemed to involve impossible wonders. My plan for the human-powered transport system, it feels like it has too many potential points of failure, too many bugs. I need a solid contingency measure to ensure project completion despite unforeseen variables. That means designing even more, a better, faster way, the aerial cable transport system. This aligns with my preference for automated transport solution and labor efficiency hack. Ezekiel watched Kale and Joran, still engrossed in the map, and then glanced at Borin, who was now scratching his beard, looking utterly bewildered by the sky path concept. What in the name of the goddess is Borin still doing here? I didn't even call for him today. He's been here since I decided to launch Phase 2, raw material resource acquisition. Is he just always here now? Master Borin, Ezekiel began, his voice cutting through his inner musings. Do we have workers who can help us with this project? I should not impose, though, our citizens may have their own business. He phrased it as a question, but it was more of a probe, a test of Borin's availability and influence. Borin sighed, running a hand over his sooty face. Ah, young lord. Business is slow, I'll admit. It seems the young lord might have more use of an honest smith like myself than the usual hammering these days. He gestured vaguely at his idle forge. But if it is workers you need, I can only recruit those of my few apprentices, 5 of them. They're good lads, strong backs, even if they don't quite understand your visions. He paused, looking at the map again, a flicker of genuine bewilderment in his eyes. And perhaps each of them can bring about 3 or even 5 more people from their own families or friends. They're all eager for honest work, especially when the fields aren't demanding. Ezekiel's golden eyes gleamed. Excellent. A human resource network. Efficient. And with a pre-existing chain of command via the apprentices. This streamlines labor acquisition significantly. Now, for the labor resource allocation. Master Borin is a surprising asset here. He's already offered his apprentices, who can then bring more workers. This is an efficient human resource management strategy. Getting a headcount is crucial for budget planning and resource allocation, food, water, and compensation for services rendered. I'll need to prepare the funds, of course. My replication abilities make financial preparation simple. Very well, Master Borin, Ezekiel said, a note of satisfaction in his voice. Bring them all over. Or rather, give me a headcount. That way, I can prepare the compensation and have them buy sustenance for the duration of the construction phase. He leaned over the map, tapping the marked red scar area. Better yet, I need to be there, at the site, for a full week. To assemble the towers and build the machines that will pull the cable car apart from the towers. This will require my direct supervision for optimal structural integrity and operational efficiency. I'll also need to be on site for at least a week. Direct supervision is essential for the assembly of the towers and the machines that will pull the cable car. I have to ensure optimal structural integrity and operational efficiency from the ground up. Borin, for all his perplexity at my computationally complex plans, is proving useful. He might not grasp the intricacies of metallic gears or sky paths, but he understands honest work. His comment about business being slow confirms there's available labor, making recruitment viable. He's a key domain expert for local data points and, it seems, for local labor acquisition too. Still, what is Borin actually doing here, lingering at the manor? I didn't summon him today. Is he just always available now? A permanent fixture? A silent observer of my optimization project? His unexpected presence is an unforeseen variable in itself. The biggest hurdle, though, is Papa's authorization protocol. This resource allocation decision requires his formal approval. He controls the county's resources and human resources after all. Securing his consent for such a large undertaking, involving significant personnel and materials, is non-negotiable. And the human-powered machine. I keep envisioning its failure. I need to draw more detailed plans for its potential failure mode, just in case. The specifics are still vague even to me, but the risk assessment, high, keeps flashing. As for the machines that will pull the cable car apart from the towers, that phrasing was a bit clumsy. What I mean is, the motive power for the cable cars will be separate mechanisms, distinct from the static tower structures. Not literally pulling them apart, but driving the cables. This will be the ultimate labor efficiency hack. But first, Ezekiel thought, turning his gaze towards the study where Lord Riel conducted his affairs, I'll need an authorization protocol from Papa.